Welcome to Networking Arizona with host Carol Blonder. You'll hear interviews with businesses located throughout the valley. Networking, it makes a difference.
If I traded it.
Welcome to the show, everyone. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. And if you want to get yourself heard on the show, just give us a call here at the station at 602-277-5369. They'll get you hooked up with me so you can get on to Networking Arizona. I'm going to go in with my first guest in networking right away. I have with me Bert Moll, and he is well, you're an attorney.
Yes.
But you're special. You specialize in something. Let's talk a little bit about your firm and what you do.
Sure, thanks. And I just want to say I'm been looking forward to spending this time and introducing myself to your listeners, Carol. This is a great opportunity. So, yeah, I specialize in personal injury, and we're going to talk about that. I also do estate planning, and actually I've had a number of years of practice here in the Valley, and I'm married. My wife is actually principal of a Christian school in Chandler called Hope Christian Academy. I've got 2 kids. My daughter is going to school in Nashville. My son is in the Navy. I have been at practice, I said, for, since 93 here in the Valley. And I actually had the privilege of partnering with some heavy hitters, Senator Stephen Yarborough and former mayor of Chandler and former Judge Boyd Dunn. And so I'm practicing doing this on my own, and I've been doing this since 2007. They are doing much better things, but I really am appreciating the opportunity to be able to talk to your listeners about what I do.
Okay, so before you came on, you said to me, because you also do PI, that you don't just do the run-of-the-mill PI. What's the difference for someone that would be, let's say, in a car accident, and they hear the ads on television, the ads on the radio and stuff like that? What's the difference between you?
Well, and I'm really glad you asked that question, Carol, because it's a good question. And let me say, first of all, that something that's really important as an attorney is to be concerned about justice, right? I mean, when we take a case, we're concerned about getting a just result for our clients. And that's what I'm about. So, but let me distinguish and really the difference between your typical PI firm is in terms of the high volume of cases those types of firms handle. They have a systematized procedure in place, a system that allows for a high volume of cases. I would say the run-of-the-mill cases are those types of cases that are typical fender-bender, not serious injuries, muscle spasms, strains, soft tissue injury. They're going to get some chiropractic treatment. They're going to get physical therapy. The typical case like that, the person's going to get 6 to 8 weeks of treatment. And those PI case firms, they're going to run that case through the mill. They're going to, at the end of it, several months after completing treatment, to bang them out. That's right. And they need to bang them out, because in order to be able to generate the kind of income they would need to maintain that practice, they need to have a high volume. They need to be in and out. So, and so if your typical listener were to have an injury like that on the way home, they go into one of those firms. It makes sense because they're going to bang it out. They're going to get it done. Whereas my practice, I'm kind of looking, I guess you'd say, more of a quality kind of a case, the kind of case that's going to require me to really put the time and effort to work it up. We're talking about discovery. We're talking about, depositions. We're talking about, putting a fair amount of time into the case. And I don't want to say, because I may get a call from a PI firm, say, wait a second, we do handle cases that involve serious injury. But you know what they do? They farm it out to another firm to handle those bigger cases, right? Because they're not going to be doing the litigation, the real time and effort in the trenches, to get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. And so, let me give you an example. Really, I don't want to simplify a case, but you're talking about, liability and you're talking about damages. So from the liability standpoint, Arizona is a comparative negligence state. And what that means is that the jury can assign fault to either driver a percentage of the fault. So let's take, for example, a person that makes a left turn on a solid green light, and the person that's coming through the intersection has a solid green light. Now, most people are going to say, well, wait a second, it makes it's a no-brainer. The person coming through the intersection had the right-of-way. The person that made the left turn is at fault, right? Well, what these insurance companies will do, they'll say, well, wait a second. That person coming through the intersection, they could have been more careful. They could have been paying attention more. They could have minimized the damage instead of slamming, without being able to brake and that kind of thing. So they'll come back and they'll say, well, we really think that we're only 80% at fault rather than 100% at fault. So you've got that liability issue. And then looking at it from the component of the damage claim, I had a case some years back where a person had a substantial impact, a rear-end collision. A week later, she goes to the hospital. She's having some heart palpitations. She's diagnosed with a left bundle branch block. Now, okay, did that happen because you had a rear-end collision a week before? So that's a causation issue. Now, was it caused by the accident? So that's where I come into play. I'm going to have to get the medical experts. I'm going to have to do the research to find out, if that's related, right? Now, and I don't want your listeners to get the sense that just because they don't have broken bones or lacerations, that it's not the quality type of case that I would look at. Because, as you know, I'm older, you're older. I mean, and people are sometimes, but you're much younger than me.
It's okay.
But no, the point being is that a person may be susceptible to injury because of their age. They may have a prior condition that makes them more susceptible to a more serious injury. Our body is obviously, a complex with, complex muscular, skeletal structure. We've got our spinal structure. It may require steroid injections. It may require surgery to go in and do some spinal fusions. So you're not going to see that because there's no broken bones. But so that's a serious type of a case. It's got serious medical expenses.
So you're looking at cases in general that they're a bump above, a little bit above just your regular fender bender. Okay.
Correct.
Now, you do free consultations for people with PI.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to open up the lines to the audience because we never know. Maybe there is somebody out there that has said. And I want to also bring up this point that it doesn't have to be an accident in a car.
That's correct.
You know, I mean, it could be any type of an accident. It could be something where you hurt yourself badly in a restaurant, got burnt, like, the lady from the, McDonald's that got burnt by coffee. And there's other things that happen that bring you to the table other than just a car accident. But that's probably maybe more than, because a lot of people do get hurt very badly in those. Our number here is 602-277-5369. Toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. If you've got not the run-of-the-mill sort of situation, you might be able to get some advice here just a little bit on the air. 602-277-5369, and toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. You're located in Chandler, but you can help anyone from anywhere. Your website is Moll, and it's Moll, M-O-L-L. It's Moll. It's pronounced like Moll, but it's M-O-L-L-A-Z Law.com. You can also call them direct. He does consultations. You got to find out, is this a case or not for you? So again, that number is for him direct. It's 480-302-5177. And again, write it down because, this is something that could happen to anybody at any time. You never know. So 480-302-5177. Okay. We're going to go to a break in just a minute. I know it's quickie because it goes so fast, but what's the number one tip that you would tell people that are listening to us before we go to a break that they should do if they do get into something like this?
Well, first of all, you're going to the insurance company is going to want a statement, right? So obviously if the police come out, they're going to take statements. Don't give a statement to the insurance company. They know their experience. They know the questions they ask. They're going to use that statement for their best interest and to further their interests rather than your own. So don't give statements to an insurance company when they call up and start saying, we're going to record a statement from you.
Right, that's a good point. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, there's some really good questions coming up about the courts and what's going on in their system and this and that. Again, our lines are open here. If you've got not just the run-of-the-mill PI case, our number here is 602-277-5369. Toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. You can also give him a call right at 480-302-5177. It's Moll, M-O-L-L-A-Z law.com. We'll be back in just a minute.
If I traded it all.
So we're talking with Bert Moll, and he is a PI attorney specializing in not your run-of-the-mill PI case. I want to give out his phone number again, but the number to call him direct, it's 480-302-5155. His website is Moll, M-O-L-L-A-Z law.com. Our lines are open here. You can call in if you have somewhat of a case that is not the run-of-the-mill type of case. You can call in and get a little tiny bit of advice right here on Networking Arizona at 602-277-5369, and toll free, it's 1-866-536-1100. You do free consultations. You have to do them because you have to find out, is this a case for you or not?
Exactly, right. I'll tell you about a case that I actually was able to conclude this last year, just before Christmas. It was a trucking case, and it dealt with, it was a rig, trucking rig, and I initially filed a complaint in Superior Court, and the defense firm transferred it to federal court. So we were in litigation in federal court. One of those types of cases that it required a substantial amount of effort on my part. For example, we had a accident reconstruction expert. We had a safety trucking expert. We had a biomechanist expert. We also had anticipated we were going to have medical experts. There were some issues of causation because there were some heart issues involved. We also ended up these tractors, they have what's called electronic control module. And interesting, cars have a black box as well that records information, which can be helpful in these types of car accidents, because sometimes we have to figure out what happened. So the electronic control module, it records hard braking events, it records operation events involving the truck, the speeds, the time on the road. So a number of things. But the problem is when you download that information from what we call the ECM, the electronic control module, you need an expert to be able to say, oh, that's valid information. So then we had to retain an ECM expert. We also were anticipating getting a human factor visibility expert. So it was I won't tell you how much I had in terms of time and cost at stake in that case, but it was over six figures. And so, we were able to settle that. And what the listeners need to know is, probably 80-90% of the cases nowadays, they do settle. And there's different ways that, you don't have to always go to trial. But if we have to go to trial, we'll go to trial, right? But there's alternative dispute resolution, a way to settle cases, and we actually went to mediation. There's also arbitration. You can have binding arbitration where it's a lot more of a looser kind of a environment. You don't have a jury. You present your case to an arbitrator. I had another case where my client was broadsided, and because of the guy came out of the side of the road, broadsided her. Her car careened into a wall. In that case, her soft tissue medical expenses were actually greater, though. She fractured her foot. And the insurance company wanted to give no more than twice her medical expenses. Well, I didn't think that was a just result. I ended up getting almost 4 times her medical expenses. So, and that case dealt with some issues, dealing with medical issues, needed to get a medical expert to say, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill. She also has some foot injury. And can you imagine, getting broadsided, and it was substantial damage to her car, and then after getting broadsided, careening into a wall and going headlong into a wall. So she did experience some substantial impact.
just on that side of it. So there are a lot of
Absolutely.
people out there that do get in these bad accidents, and that you need somebody who wants to give you justice. And that's really what it's all about. It's justice for
Absolutely.
the person that got hurt. There's some terrible things, maybe to the family, if something really bad happened. Again, we do have our lines open here. You can call in if you like. Our number here is 602-277-5369. You're doing these free consultations because you do need to find out whether or not this is a case for you or not. It's not just to run, just any hit and run, not hit and run, but hit and, fender bender, but it is something that is a little bit more extensive than that. Let me give you out his phone number again, 480-302-5155. It's Moll, MOLLAZ, law.com. Now, I know that you wanted to get a couple of other things, but a lot of people you have some of these other things here. Do you want to come out with something that you want to talk about before I ask you about the courts?
Well, again, I think it's important for your listeners just to know whenever they are in an accident, what are some of the things that they need to be aware of. We mentioned, don't give a statement to the insurance company. It's important to have an accident investigation. In the case that I mentioned, the trucking case, Highway Patrolman did appear, but you need to get somebody out to the scene, take photos. It's important that if you're able to walk around, that you get photos of all the vehicles involved. It's important that you get witness statements if there's witnesses involved. Don't rely upon the police, because they're going to come out and they're going to just do whatever they need to do and then move on. So if you're able to get witness statements, that's important. The other thing I will mention is that it's important that your listeners know the importance of having a med pay policy coverage. And what that is that's coverage with an auto insurance that will pay for the medical expenses that are incurred in the event of an accident like that. And what the listeners also need to know is that often, if you have treatment, then when it comes down for time for the attorney to say, okay, we need to talk about settlement, there are medical liens oftentimes. So medical liens, for example, if they have gotten some treatment through their work health insurance policy, they may have a right to reimbursement. That's, again, where an attorney comes into play. We do have, that's an obligation for us to go to that third party and settle that.
Now, that phone number to call is area code 480-302-5155. Talk to him. Find out. Maybe he can help you. Is there... But once a case has been settled, then you could not find, if they're listening going, gosh, I didn't know that. Could they call you anyway or no?
When you say the case is settled, are you talking about the medical liens?
Let's say, yes, something like that had happened and they didn't know.
Well, that's something they, hopefully, if they're working with an attorney, the attorney is supposed to handle that.
Right, so they should know. But again, his number is 480-302-5155. So, a lot of people, you have these questions here that are interested in knowing about the courts, that they're backed up with cases. How fast does a case go through for something like this? You could be literally looking at something like this for quite some time before it just gets turned over. Am I correct?
Well, and that's the importance of using some of these other alternative dispute resolution means of seeing if you can settle the case. It's always one of those kinds of things where the claimant and the attorney would sit down and they'd evaluate, what's the risk of going forward in trial. But if, mediation, arbitration, and again, 80 to 90% of cases do settle. So I always tell my clients, look, from the time I take your case, we're getting this ready for trial. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're getting it ready for trial. We need to be aggressive about it, because if we're aggressive and they recognize, hey, we're getting this ready for trial, we're going to be in a better position when we sit down and start talking about settlement. And that was what we did. We aggressively worked up the case that I told you about. And, one of the things that I will mention another point for your listeners is that oftentimes you have an accident and you think, my car is damaged, it's totaled, I don't have a car anymore. your listener may think, well, gee, this car is worth a lot more than what they want to give me. But the bottom line is these insurance companies, they are sophisticated in all of the data that they have in order to determine what that car is valued at. And you're going to get the fair market value of that vehicle. It may not be what you think it should be, but what I tell my clients is say, go into the Blue Book, do some research, look on Craig's list, see what other cars of that nature are selling for. Get yourself a number of different estimates based upon what they're going for, and present that to the insurance company.
What are the fees that go with arrangement that with when you work with somebody?
So typically in these kinds of cases, personal injury, slip and fall, any of the kinds, it's contingent. When we say contingency, I as an attorney, I'm on the hook, okay? So at the end of the day, if we don't get anything, then I don't get anything. But one reason why the claimant has to be looking about, should I go to trial or settle it, is at the end of the trial, if the jury says, hey, you don't get anything, and they give a defense verdict, then the claimant is responsible for all the costs that have been incurred. So there are some reasons for that. It's a contingency. Typically, we're talking, 30% or a third, and up to 40%.
He does free consultations. You won't know until you find out and ask him. Again, that number is 480-302-5155. It's mallazlaw.com.